Former Prime Minister Rafic Hariri was assassinated in 2005. There's a UN investigation, hundreds of statements, bundles of evidence, an army of suspects, and still no one is in custody for the murder. Hezbollah has handed over what it says is vital evidence, allegedly implicating Israel. In one of the most intriguing whodunits since the assassination of JFK, today's agenda brings in its own team of investigators to find out just who did kill Mr. Lebanon. The assassination of former Lebanese leader Rafic Hariri in 2005 has always been mired in claims and counterclaims, especially by Western politicians. Until a few weeks ago, the finger of blame was pointing in the direction of Lebanon's Hezbollah. But in a surprise move, the Lebanese resistance movement submitted a dossier to a state prosecutor following a UN court request. Hezbollah chief Syed Hassan Nasrallah has previously displayed what he said was Israeli surveillance footage of routes used by Hariri, saying this pointed to Israel carrying out the suicide bombing which killed the former Prime Minister and 22 others. He strongly criticised the Special Tribunal for Lebanon, describing it as an Israeli project. Nasrallah's 2-hour presentation of footage included witness testimonies and analysis aimed at making a case that Israel was behind the assassination. Lebanese prosecutor Said Mirza has now passed on the sensational evidence to the chief prosecutor Daniel Belmar's office in Lebanon. Prosecutor Belmar had previously announced that he would be likely to issue an indictment between September and the end of the year. This new evidence may now persuade him to take a closer look at an alleged Tel Aviv involvement. Today's agenda asks the question, Lebanon, who killed Rafic Hariri? Today's panellists have been chosen for their expertise and analytical skills when it comes to picking forensically through the major events which define the Middle East as a hotspot. My first guest is Ali Khareldine, who is the editor of LebaneseNews.co.uk, which has a huge global following for all matters relating to the Cedar State. He believes some of the evidence handed into the investigations team over the years has been fabricated by false witnesses. Lots of people in Lebanon no longer trust the STL, he adds. Journalist and author Trevor Mostyn's name has become a byword in the region as a media analyst and expert. His take on Hariri's assassination was that a faction within the Syrian security services could be to blame, but certainly not Hezbollah, although Israel would like the world to think so, he says. Meanwhile, Dr. Raghad Saul is a member of the Centre for Lebanese Studies in London and Lebanon. He would like to see a more open-minded and even-handed tribunal. Dr. Raghad, can you expand on that observation?
Well, I think to expand on this observation, it's good to go back to the history of the tribunal. When it started, especially when Mr. Millis was in charge, there was a feeling among many Lebanese that it was not that professional and it was highly politicized, and that it was part of a campaign, concerted campaign, American instigated campaign to destabilize the Syrian system and to put pressure on the Syrian system in order to acquiesce and to respond to American interests in Iraq, in Palestine, in Lebanon itself, and in the Middle East at large. And I think the report which was issued by Mr. Millet at the end of his period, at the end of his investigation, it gave the impression that it was highly speculative, and it gave the impression also that he confused facts for conjectures and suggestions and uncertified facts. I think the situation started to move in a different direction after he left, and it was Mr. Bramett was in charge, and then Mr. Belmar followed him. It appeared to be more professional. less politicized, more neutral, a bit more low-keyed. And there was definitely an interest in the work of the tribunal, but there was a kind of a consensus emerging among Lebanese politicians and those who were probing the activities of the tribunal to leave it alone and to try to isolate it from whether Lebanese domestic politics or Middle Eastern or the fight between...
Ali, why didn't Lebanon hold its own investigation? Why bring in the United Nations?
Why? From the beginning, you know, I mean, they couldn't get Syria out of Lebanon if they will do like just a local investigation or just Lebanese investigation. This is the plan was, you know, the aftermath of what happened after the assassination. I think myself it was kind of planned. You know, this is, we will do this, then we will put pressure on Syria to get out of Lebanon, and then they have, you know, different agenda as well. They need to continue what they wanted to do there, which is...
How much trust is there in this tribunal?
I mean, honestly, you know, a lot of Lebanese, I mean, like, let's say 50% of the Lebanese people, they don't trust the tribunal, especially after, you know, what happened, you know, like Detlef Millis' report. I mean, even before the report, you know, they accused Syria of doing it. Then after 7 months, Detlef Millis, they said, yes, he accused Syria, and the four general, they put the four general in prison for 3.5 years. Then, oh, they are out. No evidence. There is, you know, they were innocent. They didn't do it.
Trevor, whatever the outcome, do you think people will be satisfied, or do you think there will always be a lobby who...
Well, Lebanese politics is so incredibly... I mean, these are the two real experts. They are Lebanese and know the background of their country inside out. I mean, as a foreigner, I find Lebanese politics incredibly complicated. And I can imagine that 50% will never accept anything. You know, we all have our views. When the assassination of Hariri...
Well, you think it's something to do with characters within Syria, don't you?
Well, to be honest, when Hariri was first killed, my media reaction was cui bono, who benefits? Obviously Israel. You know, as soon as he was killed, the Lebanese the Syrians were expelled, all 14,000 of them. But, I mean, nothing in the Mehlis report showed this up. And of course then we get back to the point, do we trust his report or not? But now Obama has come in with it seems to be a cleaner broom. Belmar, I think we probably all agree, is obviously a reasonable guy. And there's lots of stuff on the internet accusing Belmar of being a Mossad agent and all that sort of stuff. But I don't believe it, frankly. I think he's a perfectly decent guy who's trying to get to the truth.
And you still think the finger of blame lies towards Damascus?
I read Nicholas Blandford's book, which was called Who Killed Rafic Hariri, a very interesting book. And he doesn't really come up with an answer. But when you read that book, which was published in 2006, you do assume it was Syrians who did it. Not Assad. I mean, Bashar al-Assad seemed to be genuinely surprised by the killing. And Khaddam, of course, came rushing to the hospital. So,
well, of course, it's a very hot topic at the moment because the finger of blame is now pointing by some towards Tel Aviv. But let's check out the footage leaked by the Hezbollah leader, which fueled all this new speculation.
This is the dramatic footage revealed to the world by Hezbollah Secretary General Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, which could give vital clues to the United Nations investigators probing the murder of Lebanese leader Rafic Hariri. The footage is said to have been intercepted from Israeli surveillance planes who are monitoring the site of the 2005 assassination prior to Hariri's death. Such footage usually comes as the first leg of the execution of an operation, Nasrallah said in a news conference broadcast via video link. Several clips, each minutes long and undated, showed aerial views of the coastline of West Beirut on various days prior to Hariri's assassination. Nasrallah, who has accused Israel of the February 15, 2005 bombing, which killed Hariri and 22 other people, said the footage was intercepted from Israeli MK surveillance aircrafts. Their footage shows how the spy cameras panned across the Humra district, Hariri's residences in West Beirut and Parliament, his last stop before the killing in a seafront bomb blast. Israel has in the past pointed the finger of blame at Syria and Hezbollah. Now the accuser finds itself in the uncomfortable position of being the accused.
Ali, what sort of impact have these new revelations had in Lebanon?
In Lebanon, it depends which side you are. So like the 14th of March movement, they said, oh, it's look like a soap, it's like, American movie, or, they did it like they degraded the value of this information. Not all of them, some of them. They didn't took it seriously. But of course, on the other side, it's really, if you look at it, Israel has the capability of doing that. This is first, like technologically and even military intelligence. They have spies in Lebanon, agents, like hundreds of agents in Lebanon. They used to, they confessed, they used to bring in explosive, they used to bring in through the sea, they used to bring in guns, arms, even, like there is a group of Israeli special forces, they stayed in Lebanon for 4 to 6 weeks. What they were doing, I don't think they were in a holiday there. They were doing.
So how convinced are you that the footage is genuine and that it heavily implicates Israel?
This is a good question because I trust Sayyid Nasrallah. Even the Israeli, they trust him because they say he never lies. So he won't put himself in that situation. It's a true footage. And I think Israel, they are in a very difficult place now, especially with this. And they, even they are saying, the Hezbollah sources, they are saying they have still more evidence. This is not everything.
Why did it take so long for this information to emerge, Ali?
Yeah, this is a good question as well. What happened is, this agent, because how do you link the footage with what's going on the floor, or inside Lebanon? Because this agent, Israeli agent, they only, start really like arresting them since like 2008, 2009, and this year, 2010. So it's really new things. And to gather all this information from them, it took time really to put it all together. So this is the only reason. You have the footage, you have confession, so you can put it together. And who gained from, the assassination of ex-Prime Minister Hariri? Not Lebanon, not Syria.
It's a curious thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That certainly is interesting and one that you might care to answer, Dr. Ragged. Who stood to gain from the assassination of Rafic Hariri?
If you study the political situation, I think the main benefactors of the assassination were the Israelis, because the Israelis wanted very much the Syrian army to withdraw from Lebanon. Of course, this is different from the attitude of the Lebanese. Also, I think many Lebanese wanted Syria to withdraw from Lebanon, but as far as Israel, definitely they have strategic interest in forcing the Syrians out from Lebanon. And this is what happened after the assassination of Hariri.
Would the Syrians have any interest
in assassinating Hariri? Well, there were, certain...
There was hostilities there.
Yeah, not necessarily in assassinating Hariri, but in putting pressure on Hariri. And this was the story that was circulated, that President Assad threatened personally Rafic al-Hariri that he will, create havoc in Lebanon if Hariri does not comply with what he wanted in Lebanon.
But Assad seemed genuinely astonished when he heard about the death, didn't he?
I think I underline genuinely, because I think till the last moment, even few minutes before he was assassinated, Hariri was sitting in a coffee shop and he was advising Lebanese journalists to be soft on Syria, not to go overboard in criticizing Syria.
But in the wider world, it certainly suited the American agenda and indeed the French, who were racing to the table to point the finger to Damascus.
I think what's, to many people, what's good for Israel is good for America. It's like what is good for General Motors.
But the French as well.
Because I think there was very close alliance at the time. I mean, between the Bush administration and the Israelis. In fact, in certain period of time, the Bush administration appealed more Israeli than Israel itself. That's one example is the war in 2006, when the Israelis wanted to bring the military attack against Lebanon to a halt. Where you see that the American administration, the Bush administration, was putting pressure on Israel to continue.
Well, if we look more closely at Israel, I mean, Israel's general policy is to neither confirm or deny allegations about its covert activities, but it's no coincidence that many of the Zionist state's enemies meet suspicious and violent deaths, as we see here.
April 16, 1988. Israel made no attempt to disguise the assassination of Khalil al-Wazir, the PLO's military leader and second in command. He was shot several times in his own home before his assassins escaped by sea. September 25, 1997. Palestinian leader Khalid Mishal became known as the one who got away after two Mossad agents carrying Canadian passports squirted a lethal nerve toxin into his ear as he arrived at the entrance of the Hamas offices in Amman. Jordan's King Hussein demanded that Benjamin Netanyahu turn over the antidote, which was done after the US stepped in. January 24, 2002. Eli Hobeika, a key witness in the Sabra Shatila war crimes case being pursued in a Belgian court against Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, was killed in a car bomb. March 22, 2004. The founder of Hamas, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, was assassinated when he left mosque after prayers. Yassin, a paraplegic who was in his wheelchair, was killed when Israeli helicopters fired missiles on him, killing 6 additional worshippers. 17th April 2004, Abdul Aziz al-Rantisi was killed in an Israeli missile strike. Rantisi took over Hamas leadership in Gaza after the killing of the group's spiritual leader Sheikh Ahmed Yassin in March. February 12, 2008, Hezbollah's military commander Imad Mughinier was killed by a car bomb in Damascus. He was accused of waging a 20-year campaign against Israel and the US. January 19, 2010, Hamas commander Mahmoud al-Mabou was murdered in a hotel room in Dubai in a Mossad operation involving up to 29 suspects who used fake passports, including 12 British, 6 Irish, 4 French, 1 German and 4 Australian ones.
That's quite a few different countries, lots of different victims, quite a catalogue of deaths. I mean, It shows that Israel certainly has the knowledge and the wherewithal to carry out targeted assassinations.
Yes, it does. Yes, it's carried out many assassinations of Palestinians over the last 40 years. I think Hamami was one that might... I mean, there have been times when people haven't quite known whether it was Israel or Syria that did it. But the ones you mentioned just now, I'm not sure about Hobeika. I thought Hobeika was very pro-Israeli and was very much a key figure, wasn't he, in the Sabra and Shatila?
Yeah, but later he changed later.
Yes.
I think that the point it was why they killed Hobeika at that time, because I think they were like a trial here in Belgium regarding the Sabra and Shatila, and he was coming really to give statement.
He was giving too much information.
Yes, and he knows everything about it.
Yes.
So
yes.
And there's also, Mossad was also heavily implicated in Dr. Gerald Bull's death, over the so-called supergun in Iraq.
Yes.
May I point out something? That the issue is not that they assassinated so many leaders. I mean, the issue, which you pointed out to, is that while assassinating these leaders, They denied that they have anything to do with it.
Yes.
So this is the
Yes.
main thing, is that this is the same attitude. I'm not saying that they assassinated Rafic al-Hariri.
Even Mabhur.
This should be left to the tribunal itself
Yes.
to investigate and to come out. But in all these cases, they said, we didn't do it. Somebody else did it.
Dr. Suleh, I mean, how are we going to keep our face in this tribunal? It's not about Melis or Belmar now.
Yeah.
It's not about them. It's a body. It's an organization. It's not about persons. I don't think, the way they started, they never thought about this possibility that, Israel could be maybe a suspect. They never thought about it. So they waited till Sayyid Nasrallah to, reveal this information.
They never thought, because I mean, surely haven't we all agreed that from the very beginning, who benefits? Israel. We all assumed that Israel would benefit mostly.
Yeah.
So surely Mehlis and others must have immediately looked at the the potential for Israel to be behind it. No?
They looked, you mean?
Well, they should have done. I mean,
yeah, but
logically.
they wouldn't.
Why not?
Because this is what they want to point the accusation for somewhere else, because it's why they said Syria for 3 years and a half with no evidence. Now how suddenly they changed their direction.
What sort of evidence do they have from the actual car bomb itself?
I'm not really. I don't know myself. I mean, as you hear from the news, what you hear, they have like the Sishi number or like the serial number of these cars, but there is nothing else. Maybe just a few pieces, which is very strange. Usually because a lot of cars there.
Well, certainly from the wreckage there was nothing with made in Israel. No,
because the Israelis, they're not stupid. they are very clever when they do such a thing. They are very, very clever.
How amazed were you when this footage did come out, when the Hezbollah leader showed this footage? And how convincing do you think this footage is?
I thought it's very important, very significant, and that definitely it should be given to the authorities that are investigating the case, and that it will bring a new dimension to the whole investigation.
Well, Belmar has indeed asked for more. He said he wants to see more.
He didn't ask for more. He said, well, Sayyid Nasrallah talked about more documents, more documented, and that he would like to get hold of these. And Belmar himself, in other words, he asserted the significance and the importance of the revelations of
Yeah, I was just going to say, Trevor, right up until this footage was shown to the world, the finger of blame was heading straight to Hezbollah. How devastating would that have been for Lebanon? And again, who would have anything to gain by manipulating the evidence in the direction of Hezbollah?
Well, once again, Israel, obviously, cui bono, Israel, and it would lead to possible civil war in Lebanon. And I don't even think the Americans want to see that, do they? But I never quite, I mean, it changed, seemed to start with Syria, didn't it? And then moved on to Hezbollah. I'd never ever thought the Hezbollah.
Do you think the Americans are beginning to regret this call for a thorough investigation now?
Well, there had to be an investigation of some kind, didn't there? As long as it was
but
genuine.
Not every political assassination has a UN investigation. Certainly not on this scale.
Yeah, but this was a pretty big man, wasn't it? He had rebuilt Lebanon.
Yeah, of course it is. He's a very important man for Lebanon and a big man. But it's, as Yvonne mentioned, it's strange, like why, all the international community, they want to know the truth.
Well, we're heading towards a break now, and as usual, before we go, there's a question, and I want to know who said this.
Mr. President, my people have the right to exist, and this existence is in danger.
Stay tuned for the answer right after the news. Welcome back to today's edition of The Agenda with me, Yvonne Ridley, and studio guests Trevor Mostyn, Ali Karadine and Dr. Raged Sol. As we went into the break, I asked who wrote to a US president stating, "Mr. President, my people have the right to exist, and this existence is in danger." The answer is Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, who was so enraged at John F. Kennedy for not allowing Israel to become a nuclear power, and was so convinced that Israel's very survival was in dire jeopardy that he wrote him a letter saying those words, according to the book Final Judgment in 1994. The author Michael Collins Piper says Israel's Mossad was a primary and critical behind-the-scenes player in the conspiracy that ended the life of JFK. Trevor, it's an interesting point, and if it's true, then it shows that Israel certainly does have form for taking out major figures in the political world.
Yes, I'm a little bit worried about conspiracy theories. I mean, Israel has assassinated many Palestinians in the past, but then so has Syria. I mean, we were just discussing this just now. Rafic was just saying that in Lebanon the big problem is assassination. And I don't think, although Mossad is very brilliant and has done some very dirty things, many dirty things, killed many people, I think conspiracy theories can be taken too far. I mean, for example, you know, on the websites, on Google, if you Google Belmar, you'll find people suggesting that he's Mossad, which of course is nonsense. Well, I assume it's nonsense anyway.
So you're still looking towards Damascus for the blame of Hariri's assassination?
To be honest, I don't think any of us are really in a position to know who did it. And I assume security groups must have all kinds of very complicated links with each other. You know, I mean, if this commission discovered...
But what about this footage that was released by Hezbollah? Why would Israel have a drone following and filming Rafic Hariri's movements leading up to the days of the car bomb?
Well, it's astonishing, yes. I mean, it's very hard looking at that film. For me, I find it difficult to understand what I was looking at, to be honest. But if the film does tell the story that it's supposed to, in terms of what Nasrallah has said...
Well, it was following the entourage of Hariri. I must apologise to viewers for the quality of that footage, but I think Israel needs to improve its CCTV. But yes, that's basically what it was showing, the motorcade, the presidential motorcade and its movements through
maybe not
Lebanon.
The motorcade itself, but you know the route that usually goes through it, like every day, from the parliament to his home in Crichton.
And aside from this, the footage indicated that an agent of the Israelis was there on the site where Hariri was assassinated a day before that. And that he was an agent of the Lebanese agent, and he was an army officer.
How has the West reacted to this footage?
I think trying to underestimate its significance, which was wrong, I suppose.
And how significant do you think it is?
I think it's quite significant, definitely. Otherwise, Belmar wouldn't ask for the full footage and all the documents that are...
I mean, usually these commissions are organized to be balanced, aren't they? I mean, in general terms, maybe in this case not. But the question really is Belmar balanced or not? Or is this obsession with Syria something which has been pressed on the commission?
Well, I would say that his interest in the footage is an indication of his interest to expand the investigation and to bring into the fore all possibilities, including accusing Israel or, I mean, possibility of Israel's involvement in the assassination of Hariri.
And what has been Israel's reaction? It's been very embarrassing for them to have this footage relayed to the world.
I think they try to ridicule it. That's basically their reaction. Trying to ridicule anything that indicates their wrongdoings.
Do we know yet, Ali, how Hezbollah managed to get this footage?
No, not really. I mean, as from the day that it was shown on TV, Said Nasrallah said they managed technically to intercept this footage, but how?
Well, the
We don't know.
implication is that Hezbollah have been able to download from an Israeli computer this
Yeah.
footage, which in itself is quite astonishing.
Yeah. And that's why I think, they are clever enough as well not to do like such a mistake as they mentioned in Der Spiegel, because all this theory about, Hezbollah going to be accused in September started in Der Spiegel, I think, magazine, when, they put that report and saying that, a group of Hezbollah did the assassination. And what's the motive? What's funny about the motive? Why they killed Rafic al-Hariri? They said Hariri growing popularity because he's becoming popular more than Hassan Nasrallah. This is the first reason. The second reason, this is the Der Spiegel, he was the alternative to Nasrallah. Alternative how?
Doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, I mean, even if you bring you can't be like a leader for a sect in Lebanon unless you are from that sect. If you are Shia, you will be leader for the Shia, sect. If you are Sunni, you will be leader for the Sunni sect. So this shallow motive. I mean, I was yesterday I was going through them and I thought how silly they are. Honestly, I mean, this is what they are planning. So. And the other thing, what I want to get, actually the point, they said one of that group, because all this investigation, that Der Spiegel, that they said, it was leaked, or their sources from I'm not sure who leaked this information. So they said one of the guys who was, in this group who assassinated Rafic al-Hariri, he made phone call for his girlfriend from one of the phone that used during the operation. It looks
well,
like...
let's come back and examine that more closely, but I want to take a look at the Hariri assassination and his impact on Lebanon.
He was affectionately called Mr. Lebanon. Rafic Bahar el-Din al-Hariri was a self-made billionaire and business tycoon who was Prime Minister from 1992 to 1998 and again from 2000 until his resignation in 2004. Hariri dominated the country's post-war political and business life and is widely credited with getting the country back on its feet after the devastating 15-year civil war. He was assassinated on February 14th in 2005. When explosives equivalent to around 1,000 kilograms of TNT were detonated as his motorcade drove past the St. George Hotel in the Lebanese capital Beirut. The assassination did lead to a UN Security Council resolution that demanded and got the withdrawal of Syria's 14,000 troops from Lebanon. They had first been sent to Beirut with US President Jimmy Carter's approval to stop the civil war in 1976. Despite a massive United Nations inquiry involving Irish police officers, judges from Germany, Belgium and Canada, and the setting up of an entire tribunal headquarters in The Hague, no one has been charged. The investigation into the assassination is still ongoing, and the finger of blame has been pointed in several directions, including Syria, some members of the complex Lebanese political scene, shadowy Arab groups and Hezbollah. Most of the accusations have come from off-the-record briefings by US and other Western governments and intelligence agencies. Now the finger of blame is pointing towards Tel Aviv.
Well, as we've already heard from our guests, there have been many assassinations in that region. But on the political Richter scale, how would you measure this one, Dr. Ragged?
Well, it was, tragic, and of course, it was a kind of, it was very important, and especially at the certain point when there was international regional tension, aside from the tension in Lebanon itself, and Hariri had a lot of weight in Lebanon. He could influence events one way or another. So it was very, very important. And I think it is his assassination should be looked at as a not an opportunity, but this is the time to bring political assassination to an end, or to stop it, or to do something about it. We cannot
Well,
be
you
tolerant
said yourself
towards-
there had been lots of assassinations in Lebanon. We don't know yet who's responsible for this one, but there have been many players in the past. I mean, how can you go about persuading all those different players that this tradition, almost a tradition, has got to stop?
One way of doing that is trying to find out who are the perpetrators and bring them to justice, which didn't happen before. I mean, since the emergence of the Lebanese state, it was happening and recurring, happening and all over. And then none of the perpetrators were penalized.
Well, that's an interesting point, because, Ali, if the perpetrators are Israel, your number one suspects, who is going to be brought to trial? And you know, would Israel, if they were implicated, would they be willing to hand over Mossad agents for a trial?
No. Of course, no. And I don't think, you know, Belmar will get to that point. What I think, I mean, very interesting, I was talking to like some friend just coming by car here, and his opinion is, you know, there will be no suspect, not Israel, no Hezbollah. It will go as as we used to do before. This is his opinion.
Well,
Nothing.
Trevor, you were saying that it's still wide open in terms of suspects, and you can't really point a specific finger. But as much as you said that, you're also quite confident that Hezbollah is not involved in this assassination at all.
Well, I couldn't see really how Hezbollah would benefit. I mean, Hezbollah's its entire energy has been going into defending Lebanon from the outside, from Israel, obviously. And I haven't noticed Hezbollah being particularly involved in internal assassinations. I don't really see how it would benefit Hezbollah.
Is anyone taking the Hezbollah threat seriously? I'm saying the Hezbollah threat, the suspicion that it was Hezbollah. Is anyone taking that seriously?
People I know don't take it seriously, no. I mean, most people, as I said, when it first happened, one tended to think, well, who benefits? Israel. But all the evidence seemed to point towards, not Syria, I don't think, but Syrian, some sort of Syrian security.
But you've just come back from Lebanon, and you did speak to at least one Hezbollah politician who expressed very real concern that Hezbollah would be framed for this assassination.
Yes, they are frightened. But yes, that's how Hezbollah sees it. I agree. I noticed that. I didn't speak to him personally, but he gave a speech. Yes, that's right. But I still think we should wait. We should give this man a
chance. Well, I know Ali wants to come in, but I'll come to you in a minute, Ali. The Agenda crew went off to London's Arab Quarter to get the view there about Hariri's assassination.
Who do you think killed the Lebanese leader Hariri in 2005?
Israel.
Personally, I think it might have been Israel, probably because they had the most to benefit from it.
Well, frankly, I have no definite opinion on that. But obviously, people who want to destabilize Lebanon, they must have done it. And I can't pinpoint.
Do you think it's acceptable for Israel to carry out targeted assassinations in other countries?
I don't think it's acceptable for any country to be able to do that. I think it's a disgrace.
Israel can only do this because they're propped up by the Western governments. And therefore that's the reason they're doing it. Because if they were not helped by the Western governments, they would not attempt to do this.
What should the punishment be for the assassins of the former Lebanese Prime Minister?
they should be executed or they should be killed. I'm against execution, but in this case it should be, because this is the thing that Israel does with people. So they should get back what they do to others.
Well, it should be according to the law of the land. If it is capital, it should be capital. If it is otherwise, well, it should be otherwise. It should follow the law of the land.
Capital punishment? I mean, they did it to Saddam Hussein, who destroyed, millions of people's lives, and Israel's doing the same thing, so what makes it any different?
Ali, is there still capital punishment in Lebanon?
Capital punishment, you mean as,
execution?
Yeah, execution. We still have, capital punishment. And I think this is what they should do with this, Israeli agent, because they will never stop. These people, they find it easy, to just, just deal with Israel, collaborate with Israel, and nothing will happen. Just you will go like for 6 months.
You said that you're not convinced at the sincerity of some of the witnesses that have given evidence. You think that they've been planted, that they've planted false evidence.
The witnesses. It's very popular now. Now even they start talking about it in the Lebanese government. There is like few witnesses. I don't know how many. But the popular one, which now he lives like a celebrity, last time they said maybe he's in New Zealand, Muhammad Zuhair al-Saddiq, they all, because they build the story like of accusing Syria and the force general on his statement. And at the end, there is nothing, there is no evidence, nothing. So they should deal with it. Now this guy, nobody can get him. Even the Lebanese government, I think they issued, but who's like protecting this guy?
What would you like to see happen, to the people who've perjured themselves and given false evidence, and also the perpetrators of this crime?
Yeah, of course. For me personally, Rafic al-Hariri was a great loss for Lebanon and for the Lebanese. Honestly, during his time, you can feel you proud to be Lebanese, as we say. He's a powerful man. He has relation like with every leader. Even he helped the resistance during the 1996, during the April War. He was actually like the engineering this. Understanding. It's called April Understanding. He was meeting with Sayyid Nasrallah, the last period of before he was killed. They used to have regular meeting. They used to have plans for Lebanon, the prosperity of Lebanon. So they were, especially at the end, they were very, very good friends. So I can't see how Hezbollah would assassinate, Rafic al-Hariri.
Yes, I saw you nodding in agreement there, Trevor. Do you think, I know you don't want to point the finger, so I'm not going to ask you anymore.
No, actually, I wanted to say something about what Trevor said earlier, but it seems like some of the Syrian security, maybe services, they did it. This is maybe his belief, or he thinks so.
Well, there is a plausible...
But there is no proof. 4 years they were doing their best.
To be honest,
they couldn't find any evidence.
I'm not saying that I personally think it's any one group. My personal view is that we don't have enough information to make a decision on it.
Yeah.
All I was saying was that the evidence that came after the Mehdish report seemed to suggest it was Syrians. Clearly not Assad.
This report, Melis report, first, because it's happening the same now. First it was, this report appeared in a Siyasa al-Kuwaitiyya, I think, it's a newspaper. The same scenario, it's Syria and the 4 general. Then Melis, okay, that's good. So he did his report. Now what's happening, Der Spiegel, they got this report. Then after a year, they decided, okay, this is a good scenario. Let's call some of Hezbollah member and, have a chat with them.
Release the generals too.
Yeah, exactly. This is what happened. It's very similar story between the السياسة الكويتية. It seems like someone writing the scenario and then this investigation or, like the STL, okay, they are taking through or, they are... Yeah.
Well, Dr. Ragged, I mean, Belmar has said that he will complete his findings at the end of, between September and the end of the year. I mean, that's really just a few more weeks to go. What do you think the conclusion is going to be?
Well, he said...
Will he name names?
I think he said that before the revelation of the footage. And he even said that it might go even beyond. I doubt that it will come that soon. I think it will go on for quite a while.
So you think it could go on until next year at the least?
Most probably. And then I don't think it will come... I doubt that very much that within the coming weeks he will come to a final conclusion. Besides, I think now the investigation would go into almost a different direction. Not, I mean, he wouldn't abandon all the conclusion which he reached but it will be expanded to include the possibility that Israel might be involved directly or indirectly, acting through.
How will that play out on the international stage, even just the very suspicion that the official investigation is going to look at Tel Aviv?
Well, I think it depends on the attitude toward Israel, toward Netanyahu's cabinet. I think many governments, even the West, wouldn't mind putting some pressure on Netanyahu and putting Netanyahu's government in a difficult position, or putting the Israeli elite in a difficult position in order perhaps to force them to make some concessions to the Palestinians or in whatever it is. But I think the Israelis, on the other hand, they know how to defend themselves. They go to the attack. They try to put pressure on Obama because of the coming election in the United States or for other purposes as well. And they are very clever at that, using their lobby in the United States, using their lobbies in Europe and otherwise in order to fend off any possible...
Well, a fascinating discussion, no conclusion as yet. Let's head for the Agenda's electronic post room where Mohammed Walji selects the best Facebook responses to today's topic as well as text and email comments.
Egyptian Tariq Al-Farah is becoming a real Agenda fan. And after tuning into our show asking if America is a civilized nation, he responded, "Enjoyed the USA Civilized episode. Your shows are getting better and better." And Nina Hallington from Manchester sent in an email about the same episode. She says, "A classic example of Americans' uncivilized behavior is the way they have destroyed the English language and invented their own words. They insist in inserting Z's where there should only be an S. Agenda was guilty of it by putting a Z in the word civilized. Please don't let standards fall. Their way of spelling, it drives me crazy." On that note, let's move quickly on to today's hot topic and check out the reaction so far on Facebook, starting with British surgeon Tanvir H, who cut straight to the heart of the issue, declaring the assassination was false flag all the way then. Knew it. Meanwhile, Razak Mughal Gowri is still in mourning over the death of the former Prime Minister. He declared, "My hero was Rafic Bahar el-Din al-Hariri." But in Saudi Arabia, Munawwar Muhammad wants to raise the issue in a slightly different way. He asks, why was not similar interest in the assassination of John Garang, the South Sudan leader? The US is very clear which cases it should pick up. And Asif Rahman controversially adds, "Personally, I think that most assassination investigations should at least start at Israel's door. Let's face it, if the shoe fits." Warming to the theme, Mark Copestake says, "Israel always pretend they are innocent, and then they behave like a child caught with his hand in the sweet jar, and everyone believes them." Well, that's all we have time for today. So if you'd also like to be in touch, then please send your emails to theagenda@presstv.com. You can also contact us on Facebook or text us at +44 780 00 08 086. If you'd like to watch a past show, simply go to our website at presstv.com. Once there, click on the Programmes icon, then click on the Agenda panel, and there's a selection of past shows for you to choose from. Thanks for watching, and back to you in the studio.
Thanks for that, Mohammed. Well, that just remains for me to say a very big thank you to our three guests, and we'll see you all soon on the next Agenda.